When you think about old racing games, you do not just remember speed, you remember pressure. The kind that hit the second the countdown started. The kind that made your hands tighten before the race even moved. The kind that turned a simple track into something that felt bigger than a game. Old racing games felt intense because they did not treat speed like decoration. They treated it like danger. There was no room to relax, no endless open road to cruise through, no over-polished safety net. Just a car, a track, a countdown, and the feeling that one wrong turn could ruin everything. And somehow, that made every second matter more. A lot of those games had this raw energy that modern racing games often do not capture in the same way. The camera sat lower, the roads felt narrower, the motion felt sharper. The sense of control was always hanging by a thread. You were not just driving, you were fighting the car, the track, the traffic, the corner, the clock, and sometimes even yourself. And that is why it stayed in your body. Because old racing games were physical in a strange way. Not physically real, but physically felt. The engine sound did not sit in the background, it pushed against you. The tire screech did not just signal a turn, it felt like a mistake. The blur around the edges was not just visual style, it was panic, it was momentum, it was the game telling you that you were moving too fast to think clearly. That is what made them intense. They were not trying to make speed look clean. They made speed feel unstable. Back then, racing games also knew how to create tension before the race even began. The menu music, the car select screen, the loading screen, the little pause before the lights go green, it all built pressure. It felt like a challenge was being placed in front of you, not a feature to casually enjoy. And once the race started, everything became urgent. Older racing games had this beautiful aggression to them. The streets were alive with risk. The traffic was mean. The corners were unforgiving. The crashes felt loud and humiliating. Even when the game was arcade-style and forgiving, it still carried that sense that you had to prove something every time you hit the gas. Maybe that is why so many of us remember old racing games as being harder than they actually were. Not because they were brutally difficult, but because they made every mistake feel expensive. One bad turn could break your rhythm. One crash could destroy your momentum. One lapse in focus could turn a perfect lap into a loss. And momentum mattered a lot. Old racing games were obsessed with momentum in a way that modern games sometimes soften. When you were moving fast, you felt it. When you lost speed, you felt that too. The whole game was built around that fragile state of flow, where you were either controlling the race or slowly losing it. That is something a lot of modern racing games forget. They look amazing, they sound amazing, but they often feel too polished to scare you. Old racing games were rougher, dirtier, more direct. They did not always try to make you comfortable. They tried to make you focused. The tracks helped too. Old racing games loved tight streets, night cities, tunnels, highways, mountain roads, industrial zones. Places that looked simple, but felt dangerous at high speed. A straight road could become terrifying if it was long enough. A corner could become a test of nerve. A tunnel could feel like a funnel into chaos. And because the graphics were limited, your imagination filled in more than the game showed. A sharp turn looked more dramatic. A headlight in the dark felt brighter. A moving rival felt more threatening. Everything became a little larger in your head. That is part of the magic. Older games were not just giving you speed, they were giving you room to fear it. And maybe that is why they felt more intense than modern racing games in some cases. Modern games can be prettier, smoother, faster, more realistic. But realism is not the same as intensity. Sometimes the rough edges, the exaggerated motion, the louder sound, the tighter camera, and the less forgiving controls create a feeling that realism alone cannot touch. Old racing games were often less about perfectly simulating driving and more about creating a rush. They wanted your heart to rise. They wanted your hands to sweat. They wanted that moment where you leaned forward without even noticing it. And they got it. Looking back now, that intensity feels almost emotional, not because we miss only the speed, but because we miss the feeling of being fully locked into something. No notifications, no distractions, no endless checklist, just a race that demanded your full attention. That kind of focus is rare now. Maybe that is why these games still hit so hard. Not because they were flawless, not because they were technically better, but because they knew how to turn movement into tension, tension into excitement, and excitement into memory. Old racing games did not just make you go fast. They made speed feel dangerous. And once a game teaches you that, you never really forget it. You remember the countdown. You remember the engine. You remember the corner you barely survived. You remember the crash that ruined everything. You remember the one perfect run where everything clicked. You remember what it felt like to chase the finish line like it mattered. That is what made them intense.